Hello and welcome to Loch Ness Knitting and the first of our virtual shop talk videos this week. Okay, so what I'm doing is introducing you to the behind the scenes, how I work and what I do at Loch Ness Knitting, and I'm also testing out equipment and platforms and processes for hosting the courses that I offer online. We're not doing this as a live stream because I have two fluffy cats that are likely to interrupt live streams, and I want the ability to edit them and any other unforeseen events out of a video if possible. And I'm also one person, so if we were to do live stream I'd have to monitor comments at the same time, and I can't do two things at once. So, an introduction to what I am and where I am. I'm Dwynwen, I am the owner of Loch Ness Knitting, and we are actually based in the Scottish Highlands, very close to Loch Ness. Later on in the week we might give you a little tour outside, but I guarantee you that out of that window there are Scottish Highland mountains, and kind of out of that window, if you were to lean out of it quite far, you'd be able to see Loch Ness. So we are genuinely based in Scotland. What I do is create a range of sustainable natural dyes using waste materials that are gathered in the local area. For the cafe collection, I take food waste from our local Loch Ness cafes, and I make natural dyes using avocados, coffee grinds, orange peels, things like that. Wanted to just reassure customers that cafes are closed at the moment, but I do have a supply of materials to keep dyeing, which is what I would normally have during the winter months anyway. So I'm just going to give you a quick look inside the freezer here. So I have a freezer full of materials which I can continue to use. I've got materials in another freezer downstairs as well. So the cafe collection can continue to be on offer even though the cafes are closed. And the Woodland Collection is a seasonal collection created using materials from Loch Ness woodlands, and that will also continue to be on offer because I can go out and work in the woodlands by myself to collect those materials. So I work from home anyway, so we're in my house at the moment and I've not had to go anywhere during this time. So come on through. If you've already been to see me in person, or you were thinking of coming to shop in person, this is the area that I would bring you to take a look at the yarn. We're going to talk more about what's on the table later in the week. So tomorrow we're going to talk about the Merino, which is at this end of the table. Then on Wednesday we're going to talk about the British Blue Faced Leicester, which is on this side of the table. And on Thursday we're going to talk about the books, which are in the middle of the table. And on Friday we'll talk about kits and patterns. So if you have any questions about any of those items, please feel free to message me on Instagram or on Facebook. You can leave comments below each of the videos, which I will monitor, and you can also email me at lochnesknitting@gmail.com, so I can make sure that I can feed back to you with any particular questions you have about the yarn on the table. Today I'm going to talk about yarn of the month. So if we have a quick look at the poster, this is an interactive display that we made up to help talk to people about where yarn comes from, and the various different breeds of sheep that help to make up heritage yarn and single breed yarn. The majority of mass-produced yarn in the UK comes from things like Texel and Cheviot sheeps, and generally a crossbreed of those two sheep types. And these are, the rest of the sheep here are what I would refer to as heritage breeds, where people have them on crofts or small farms as a hobby. They're not the main source of British farming yarn. But it's very important that we support the people who are looking after those breeds. And the yarn that is coming from these sheep has very special qualities. Some of them were bred to have long wool varieties that were very good for hand spinning. Some of them have been bred for waterproofing. Some of them have been bred to adapt well to the landscape that they live in, things like the South Down, and also the Shetland sheep. So the yarn type that I choose each month, the yarn of the month, comes from one of those heritage breeds, which are generally only available to me in smaller quantities, and not as predictably as the Merino and the Blue Faced Leicester yarn that I use all year round. but once a month it's good to highlight something really special. And this month we are working with Corriedale. So Corriedale is a crossbreed yarn where you bring together merino and a Lincoln long wool. So you get some rustic elements, but you also get a nice long fibre for spinning. It means that you get a yarn which has maybe the look of something quite rustic, like I'm not going to say something as rustic as a Hebridean, but definitely a more rustic fibre. But it doesn't have the additional lanolin that you tend to get in the very outdoor hardy sheep. And it doesn't have the short fibres that you get on those sheep either, which tend to be irritable to people's skin. So if you want something that looks chunkier and rustic, but without some of those irritable qualities, a Corriedale is a good choice of yarn for you. This is British Corriedale yarn, but just a word about what that actually means. British Corriedale and also British Merino yarn comes from the Falkland Islands as opposed to being bred on the islands of the United Kingdom. Now I know there are technical terms for map things there, so I'm not sure I've got the grouping absolutely precise, but just to let you know, there has been some transport when it comes to the Corriedale yarn. This has been hand dyed by me using coffee grinds, and I've treated that natural dye in 2 different ways in order to create 2 colours on the skein. And as with all natural dyes, what you've got within that skein is lots of tones and variations, which make each garment made from it unique. These are chunky skeins, so you get 100 meters per skein. And it's very good for people who are looking for a rustic knit in an earthy color. That's what these 2 dyes do really, really well. Okay. So those are available on the website at the moment as yarn of the month. Next month's yarn of the month is going to be a Dorset horn in a DK weight. So whilst this chunky yarn only has 100 meters, the Dorset horn is going to have 200 meters on it. So look forward to that for next month. Before we wrap up, as well as highlighting heritage British sheep breeds, what I also want to do is throw the spotlight on some other local makers and small businesses. So handily, I've got this display from Karen at K Price Art. Karen lives 2 doors down from me, and her creative skill is making these really lovely Highland inspired pictures using felt materials. And one that I particularly love is the Highland cow at the end there. So please take a look at her for her social media and her Facebook group. She is K Price Art, and say hello to Karen. That's all we've got time for today. We're keeping it short, so you could just squeeze these short videos into your tea break. As I say, please message me if you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, if you've got any feedback, and join me for videos later in the week to find out more about Merino, Blue Faced Leicester, books, kits and patterns.